Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Srimad His Divine Grace, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada ki jai. Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki jai. Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shamakun Radha Kun Giri Govardhan ki jai. Shri Vrindavan Tham ki, Mayapur Navadvip Tham ki, Purushottam Kshetra Jagannath Puri Tham ki, Yamuna Mayi ki, Ganga Mayi ki, Jai Tulsi Devi Bhakti Devi ki, Jai Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda ki, Jai Gaura Premanande. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Sri Guru and Gauranga.
Verses.
10 verses? No, just 24 and 25.
Ah, 25. Here is 50.
That's the date.
Hmm?
Wait, is that the date?
Oh, yeah. 24 and 25.
Yeah. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Brajajanaranjana Yamunatiravanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari Yashoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tiravanachari Jayom Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivajacharya Stotara Satta Shri Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Antakoti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Gaura Premanande All glories to the assembled devotees All glories to Sri Sri Guru and Gauranga Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Jnana Timirandasya Gnanjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadhamayam Dadati Svapadantikam Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Reading from the 7th canto, chapter 1, text 24, and we'll do 25 also. Himsa tadabhimanena. You can repeat after me. Himsa tadabhimanena. Danda parushayoryata. Vaishamyamiha bhutanam mamahamiti partiva himsa tadabhimanena danda parushayoryata Vaishamyamiha bhutanam mamahamiti partiva hingsa tadabhimanena danda parushayoryata Vaishamyamiha bhutanam mamahamiti partiva hingsa tadabhimanena danda parushayoryata Vaishamyamiha bhutanam mamahamiti partiva. Okay, word for word. Hingsa, suffering. Tat, of this. Abhimanena, by the false conception. Dandaparushayoho, when there is punishment and chastisement. Yata, just as. Vaishamyam, misconception. Iha, here in this body. Bhutanam, of the living entities. Mama aham, mine and I. Iti, thus. Partiva, O Lord of the earth. Translation. My dear King, the conditioned soul, being in the bodily conception of life, considers his body to be his self, and considers everything in relationship with the body to be his. Because he has this wrong conception of life, he is subjected to dualities like praise and chastisement. Purport. Only when a conditioned soul accepts the body as himself does he feel the effects of chastisement or praise. Then he determines one person to be his enemy and another person and another his friend, and wants to chastise the enemy and welcome the friend. This creation of friends and enemies is a result of one's bodily conception of life. Okay, so Hare Krishna. Who's this? Nice to see you here. Is this your friend too? Hare Krishna. Ray? Hi, Ray. Hi. Thanks for coming. Oh, okay. I see. Okay. So, what we're talking about now is Yudhishthira Maharaj, who's the king being addressed in this verse, my dear king, Yudhishthira Maharaj. He asked a question to Narada Muni. So this is Narada Muni speaking. And Yudhishthira Maharaj asked Narada Muni a question like, how is it possible that Shishupal, who's a great demon, Shishupal and Dantavakra, they're great demons. They were criticizing the Lord like anything, and they were constantly blaspheming the Lord. How is it possible that they perfected their life? How come they got liberated? How come they got to achieve their spiritual, they got to merge into the body of Krishna and get the body like Krishna, even though they did so they blasphemed him like anything. And then why is it that King Vena, who's another person who also blasphemed the Lord like anything, he was cursed to go to hell by Brahmanas. So why did one demon get one destination and another one get the other destination? So this is just to fill you in if you want to know where we're at. So Narada Muni's beginning his answer here. He's going to give a 4-part answer. So we're going to talk about the first one, maybe 2 parts of the answer today. The first part of the answer just what deals with the assumption that Yudhishthira Maharaj makes, or just an assumption that one might make by asking this question. The assumption is that if you criticize the Lord, then that's like a bad thing, and that will inhibit your spiritual progress, or that will not make it possible for you to become liberated. This is the underlying assumption in this question, like criticizing the Lord is a bad thing. So Narada Muni is going to address this assumption first, and then he's going to address the question. So the first assumption is that, or the first part of the answer is that only those who are under the bodily conception of life, those who identify themselves as being their body, criticism and chastisement and blasphemy, all of that, it affects those people who identify with the body. That's the first point. So like if I, if I think I'm this body and you criticize my body, then I'm going to be affected by that. So if you say that you are, you're slow, or you can't understand anything, or you're not intelligent, or whatever criticism that comes to you, if you think that you're this body, you'll be affected by that. You'll think it's like an attack on you. Whereas, like, let's say if you were spiritually realized and you knew that you were not this body, then if somebody said, oh, you're slow or something, okay, maybe my body is slow, but since I'm not my body, you can say whatever you want about the body, it's not going to affect me. And if you're really realized, then you'll know who you are. Like, let's say if you're a cowherd boy in the spiritual world or something, and somebody says your body is slow, you're like, okay, whatever, but I'm pretty quick when it comes to cracking jokes with Krishna, or whatever, because you know who you are, and then they're criticizing something that's not you, so it won't affect you. So that's just the first part of the response. So it's just like being I guess what you can say is not having the proper discrimination between what is Atma. Atma means the self, or the true self, and what is non-Atma, that which is not the true self, like this material body. I was just reading a kind of a nice example of this. The other day. Well, let me start with this. First, the jiva, because the jiva has this, like, the soul, like the self, the atma. It has two bodies. One is like the real self, and then one is atma, one is non-atma. And we always have this little problem that we always tend to identify with the non-atma when we should really be identifying with the atma. So, one nice little pastime in this regard, which kind of highlights one's inability to discriminate between what is the true self and what is not the true self, is as follows. So one time, Kamsa, you know who Kamsa is? Kamsa, he's like the head, Krishna's uncle. He's like the head, he's like the king of the whole area where Krishna, king of the whole, he's like the king of everything. And he's kind of a big demon, and he always used to try to kill Krishna by sending all kinds of demons to go kill Krishna. So so sometimes Kamsa, he used to send spies to go kind of perform reconnaissance, to try to gather some information about where is Krishna, what's he doing, how to best to kill him, whatever. So one time one of his spies came back to Kamsa and reported to Kamsa that, just information about Krishna, but then the spy also happened to say that in this place called Yavata, which is in Vrindavan, somewhere, it's a particular place called Yavata, there's this super, super beautiful girl, like the most exquisite, beautiful girl that I've ever seen. She's most beautiful, most attractive. Everything about her is just amazing. The spy was glorifying all of the gopis in that area, the Yavatas, but the spy was particularly glorifying one gopi that was really shining out as beautiful, and whatever's name. So then Kamsa started getting ideas in his head about, that's some news that maybe I could do something about. So then he wanted to go see for himself if the exquisite beauty of this charming girl was as amazing as the spy said it was. So then he decided to, on the pretext of surveying his kingdom, he gathered some soldiers, and then he went to go to this place, Yavata. He's pretending like he was surveying his kingdom, but really he wanted to see this beautiful girl. And then if he did find this beautiful girl, then he was thinking that maybe I'll kidnap her and make her my queen or something. So they go, and then they go to, Kamsa and his soldiers, they go to Yavata, and then when they get close, Kamsa tells the soldiers, you just wait right outside of town. I'm going to go in, got some business to deal with. You just wait here, and I'll be back. So then Kamsa goes in, and he finds this lake. This lake is called Kishori Kund. And so he ties up. He's riding on this super. It's really interesting. Kamsa's like this. Does anybody know who Ganondorf is? Anybody play Zelda? Anybody play Zelda? So Ganondorf, he's basically like Kamsa. It seems like they took Kamsa right from the Vedas, and then they made him a character in Zelda. He's like the dark, evil king. So he's like super tall and muscular and well-built, and he's riding on this super opulent horse. And when I think of Kamsa, I think of Ganondorf. So imagine Ganondorf coming into Yavata, which is like this super beautiful, serene, rural area, peaceful, and then this like dark lord coming in who's super tall and, you know, the contrast is quite stark. So when he comes to this little lake in this very scenic rural part of the town, then the environment reacts to him coming. Like all the birds, they fly away. All the fragrant. Normally the air is very fragrant and it smells beautiful with flowers and all kinds of nice scents. All the fragrance, they retreated. You know, it didn't smell good anymore. And you know, basically everyone just kind of like scattered right when Kamsa was coming into this lake. So anyway, Kamsa ended up becoming thirsty. So he got off his horse, he tied up his horse on a tree, and then he went to go to this lake to take some water to quench his thirst. So when he knelt, he took off his gloves, you know, and then he put his hand in the lake, you know, and then he cupped it, and then and then as soon as his lips touched the water, his horse started neighing, you know, making all kinds of sounds, like it was startled or something, like something just happened. So then Kamsa got up and looked around and didn't see anything because everybody just scattered when he came, so there's nobody there. And Kamsa was wondering, what the heck is freaking out my horse? So anyway, so then I guess he's just like, okay, well, I guess there's nothing. So then he knelt back down again to take more water. And then when he was kneeling down and he went to go get some more water, he noticed that in the reflection of the lake, there was this girl who was looking up as the reflection. So this beautiful girl with, you know, like pouting lips and big beautiful eyes and golden complexion and all of these things. And then he like looked at and he's thinking, and then he looked around like, who's here? You know, he's thinking maybe some girl was behind him or somebody was there, but nobody was there. So then he kept looking at this reflection. And the thing was, this reflection looked just as startled as him. He was startled by seeing this girl in the lake, and then that girl seemed to be just as startled by seeing him, I guess. So Kamsa was thinking that this is like a water nymph or something, some nymph. Anyway, he was trying to figure out who the heck this was. So then he tried to like reach his hand in the water to, I don't know, to grab her or something, I don't know. And then right when he reached his hand in the water, he noticed that his hand and his arm was kind of like very delicate and dainty and like you know, kind of like smaller, and you know, his hand looked like a girl's hand when he reached into the water. And then he's like, whoa, what's going on here? He looked at his hand. It looked just like a girl's hand. You know, he's a big, strong guy, and all of a sudden now he's got this skinny little dainty hand. So then he kind of stands up, and then he starts to notice that there's all these things are different about him. He just feels really weird. He starts moving. His movements are like, you know, fluid and graceful, and he's wearing all these like loose clothing. He was wearing all this like armors like a king and stuff, and then all of a sudden now he's wearing all these loose clothing, and then he finds himself like kind of restricted in his movements, and then he realizes, oh, I'm wearing a skirt, and then he's like, where am I? You know, I can't move, and then he's so all these, and then he noticed that he was wearing bracelets, and he was all these ornaments, and then he was just like, and then I think he said, what the heck happened? What is going on? And then when he said that, he noticed that his voice was also feminine. He started speaking in such a way that he was like a girl. So then he realized that I'm a girl. How did this happen? I still feel like Kamsa, but I've got the body of a girl, like a very beautiful gopi girl. And he was like, what? Anyway, so just as he was thinking this way, two other gopis happened to come across to Kishori Kund. It was Lalita and one of Lalita's maidservants. So these were two gopis, two local village girls, And they come, and then they ask, they're coming to Kishori Kund to get some bathing water for Srimati Radharani. So this is what they do. They come, they get water, and they bring it back to their princess, Srimati Radharani. So then when they're coming to Kishori Kund, they notice this very opulent horse and chariot, and they were wondering, who does this belong to? And then they kind of looked around. They saw this beautiful gopi girl, and they were thinking, well, maybe she knows. So then they said, Saki, do you know whose chariot and horse this beautiful horse is? Then this was a Kamsa who had become a girl. So now Kamsa, now his name is not Kamsa anymore, it's Kamsa Gopi. So this is how Kamsa is being addressed now. So Kamsa Gopi tells these two, Lalita and the maidservant, that's mine. that's my chariot and my horse. So then Lalita and the maidservant were like, how did you get such opulence? We're in a village here, we don't have this kind of stuff just around. And then Kamsa had to he was freaking out, by the way. This is all really new to him. So then he asked, he had to tell them what just happened. So then he told them, I'm actually King Kamsa, and I came here on the pretext, surveying my kingdom, and I got thirsty, so I came here, I came with my soldiers, I was surveying the kingdom, I got thirsty, I came here, and I drank from the water, and then now I became a girl, and I don't know what's going on. Can you guys help me? Because he didn't have any power anymore. He was just like a little girl, and this was very much against his nature. He was used to being a big, strong, powerful king. So then the girls, Lalita in particular, she kind of figured out what was going on. She kind of was putting two and two together, and so then she said, why didn't you come with your soldiers? Why did you come alone? Why did you leave your soldiers on the outskirt of town? Why didn't they come and also get a drink of water? Why only you? And then Kamsa Gopi kind of had to hold his head in shame, because the reason he came there was provoked by lust to see the gopis. So the reason he went there was for that reason, but he didn't really want to say anything, so he was just silent. So then Lalita figured out exactly what was going on, that, okay, this probably is Kamsa, and he came here to drink from this Kishori Kund, this lake, and what happened was that one of the things about this lake is that it has the special power that if whatever your desires are, and you drink from this lake, your desires get fulfilled. So this is a special thing about this lake. So Kamsa went there with lust for the gopis, and when he went to drink the water, he got his desires fulfilled. He became a gopi. So then Lalita told him, well, you came here because, what was in your heart? Lalita knew this about the lake. So she kind of figured it out. She said, well, what was in your heart that made you end up getting the body of a gopi? Didn't you know that this lake just fulfills all your desires? And here it is, you have a body of a gopi. Perhaps you were lusty, and this is just the reaction that you get from just being a wicked person. And Kamsa was just like, what you're saying is true. I came here, and Anyway, so then Lalita was just like, we're not gonna. This is what you get. We're leaving. We're out of here. Kind of very hard. And then Kamsa just fell on his knees and started begging Lalita, like, hey, what's going on? Please, Lalita. I don't know, just person, you girl. I cannot have this body as a gopi. I am the king, and I cannot rule the kingdom with this girl body. It's not going to work, because what are other people going to think? They're gonna criticize me. Here we're talking about, everybody's, if you're thinking that you're the body, you want praise, and you want to avoid criticism. So here, because Kamsa was thinking that he was the body, he was afraid that other people would criticize him, and that would affect him very much. So he was begging and pleading with Lalita to please somehow help me get my body of a king back. So then Lalita, just as Lalita was about ready to scold Kamsagopa even more, Srimati Radharani appeared in Lalita's mind. And Srimati Radharani, she said, bring this rascal to me. Because now Kamsa, he's in a humiliated state. Perhaps in this humiliated state, he'll be able to render some service to Krishna. So this is what Radharani said in Lalita's mind. So then Lalita said, okay, Kamsa Gopi, I can't help you. But if you come and you invoke the mercy of our princess, Srimati Radharani, she can do anything. She might be able to help you. So then Kamsa was like, yes, please, anything. What do I have to do? And then so Lalita said, leave your chariot and your horse here and just come with me. I'll take you to go see Srimati Radharani. So then, as they were going to Radharani's house, or Abhimanyu's house, which is where Radharani's husband, Abhimanyu, Lalita asked Kamsa Gopi, you carry the water that's meant for bathing Srimati Radharani. So Kamsa was walking to Radharani's house doing some service, carrying the water of Srimati Radharani. And then also along the way, he had to kind of offer respects to the different Vrajavasis that they encountered on the way to Radharani's house. So Kamsa was getting all this, first of all, he got the body of a gopi, which was, who could ask for more than that? Then he started performing all this service, carrying Radha's bathing water and offering respects to the Vrajavasis. And then anyway, they ended up going to Srimati Radharani's house, and Lalita told Kamsa Gopi, okay, you wait here in the reception area in this chair, and I'll go in and I'll see Radharani and tell her what's going on. So then Kamsa noticed that, wow, this house is super opulent, because he was sitting on the super ornate chair with gems, and there was carpets and curtains, and everything was super, super nice. And then he was wondering, I didn't know cowherds were so opulent. Here he was coming from a big city where everything is nice, and then he's coming into the whole cowherd village, and wow, everything is so amazing. So when Lalita goes in and gives the bathing water to Radharani, she bathes, and then when Lalita's holding the mirror for Radharani to see herself when she's getting ready, Lalita tells Srimati Radharani about this very uncommon gopi who is waiting in the reception area of the house. So Srimati Radharani said, well, what's so uncommon about her? And then Lalita said, well, she claims to be King Kamsa, who drank from Kishori Kund and became a girl, and now he came to seek your mercy so that he can get his body of a king back. So Radharani, she thought about it, and then she got up, she kind of held her head up high, and then she started walking to go meet Kamsa Gopi. So then Kamsa Gopi, when Radharani comes in, all of a sudden, the whole environment just gets so much better. It's just as if spring just arrived in that place, and she's so beautiful. Then Kamsa Gopi is super enchanted and enthralled by Srimati Radharani. Then Kamsa Gopi gets up to greet her, and then Radharani says, my friend here tells me that, a pretty strange story about you. I want to hear it from your own lips. Can you tell me what's going on? Why did you come here? And then anyway, so then Kamsa tells all the details, and then begs and pleads, you have unlimited mystic potencies. You can help me, please. Give me the body of a king back. So then Radharani says, if it's true that you are King Kamsa, then your getting this body is just a reaction, is what you get for your wicked mind. That's just the way it is. So why should we help you? And so then Kamsa just begs and pleads and folds his hand. Same kind of thing, you must help me, please. I want to be the king. I don't want to be this gopi. So then Radharani says, okay, I might be able to help you, but you have to, are you willing to reimburse us? Like, are you willing to do something for us? And then Kamsa says, yes, of course, anything, I'll do whatever you want. And then Radharani, then she starts talking super sternly, and she gets really, so much anger in her voice. And then she says to Kamsa, ever since the day that Krishna was born, you've been trying to kill him in so many ways. Everybody knows this. You've been sending all of your demon friends to come and kill Krishna, and this is really interrupting his play. Although all of your demon friends are dying, it's not that I'm so much worried about Krishna, being killed by your demon friends, but it's interrupting his play. So, do you promise that you will not send any more of your henchmen to come and kill Krishna anymore? So then Kamsa Gopi says, yes, I promise. And then Radharani says, promise what? And then, so Radharani made Kamsa say that I promise that I will not send anybody I know to come and kill Krishna, okay? And then Radharani says, okay, so here's what you have to do if you want to go get your body of the king back. You got to go back to Kishori Kund, make a vow in front of the sun god that, you're about your promise and all, and then you can drink from the water, and then you'll get your body of the king back. So then as Kamsa Gopi was leaving, Radharani was just thinking, wow, so many, great sages and yogis and sadhakas and siddhas alike, they all go through so much austerities and intense spiritual practices to get the body of a gopi. And here is King Kamsa, who got it just, and from this very interesting means. And she was just thinking, in Kali Yuga, she could see in the future. So she was thinking, in Kali Yuga, people are going to try to get gopi bhava, the feelings of the gopis, just by dressing up like the gopis. In Kali Yuga, this is what's going to happen. So then she was thinking the only hope for the people of Kali Yuga is Lord Chaitanya's Harinam Sankirtan mission. So this is what Radharani was thinking, wow. Anyway, so it's just interesting that, because normally people who have this problem of identifying with their body, they have a material body, and their real body, the Atma, and then they tend to identify with the material body because that's what they see, and that's what they can perceive, and that they're just identifying with it. And that's part of their problem. That's why they get affected by this stuff. But here was Kamsa, who's in a little bit of a different position, where he gets kind of not exactly a spiritual body, but at least a body that's suitable for serving Krishna. And he's not identifying with that, even though that's what he can see. And yet he's identifying with his just some concept of who he thinks he is as Kamsa. But because of all this misidentification, he gets really subjected to these dualities, being praised and chastised. So I just thought this was a really interesting story, and I was trying to relate it to the problem with not being able to distinguish the Atma from the non-Atma. You guys got to go? Oh, okay, sure. Well, thanks for stopping by. Oh, okay. Okay, great. So hope to see you again. So, sure. Okay, thank you for coming. Hare Krishna. Okay. So this is the first part of Narada Muni's response to Yudhishthira's question. He just, this little problem that people have of identifying with, they can't discriminate between Atma and non-Atma, and therefore they're affected by criticism. So first he's addressing that assumption. So now the second part of Narada Muni's response is here in the next verse, 25. So we'll go ahead and read this and hopefully talk briefly about it. So text 25, because of the bodily conception of life, the conditioned soul thinks that when the body is annihilated, the living being is annihilated. Lord Vishnu, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is the supreme controller, the super soul of all living entities. Because he has no material body, he has no false conception of I and mine. It is therefore incorrect to think that he feels pleasure or pain when blasphemed or offered prayers. This is impossible for him. Thus, he has no enemy and no friend. When he chastises the demons, it is for their good, and when he accepts the prayers of the devotees, it is for their good. He is affected neither by prayers nor by blasphemy. Purport, because of being covered by material bodies, the conditioned soul, including even greatly learned scholars and falsely educated professors, all think that as soon as the body is finished, everything is finished. This is due to their bodily conception of life. Krishna has no such bodily conception, nor is his body different than his self. Therefore, since Krishna has no material conception of life, how can he be affected by material prayers and accusations? Krishna's body is described herewith as Kaivalya, non-different from himself. Since everyone has a material bodily conception of life, if Krishna had such a conception, what would be the difference between Krishna and the conditioned soul? Krishna's instructions in Bhagavad Gita are accepted as final because he does not possess a material body. As soon as one has a material body, he has 4 deficiencies. But since Krishna does not possess a material body, he has no deficiencies. He is always spiritually conscious and blissful. Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchidananda Vigraha. His form is eternal blissful knowledge. Satchidananda Vigraha, Ananda Chinmay Rasa, and Kaivalya are the same. Krishna can expand himself as Paramatma in the core of everyone's heart. In Bhagavad Gita it is confirmed, the Lord is the Paramatma, the Atma or super-self of all individual souls. Therefore, it must naturally be concluded that he has no defective bodily conceptions. Although situated in everyone's body, he has no bodily conception of life. He is always free from such conceptions, and thus he cannot be affected by anything in relation to the material body of the jiva. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, quote, those who are envious and mischievous, who are the lowest among men, are cast by me into the ocean of material existence, into various demoniac species of life. End quote. Whenever the Lord punishes persons like demons, however, such punishment is meant for the good of the conditioned soul. The conditioned soul, being envious of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, may accuse him, saying, Krishna is bad, Krishna is a thief, and so on. But Krishna, being kind to all living entities, does not consider such accusations. Instead, he takes account of the conditioned soul's chanting of Krishna, Krishna so many times. He sometimes punishes such demons for one life by putting them in lower species. But then, when they have stopped accusing him, they are liberated in the next life because of chanting Krishna's name constantly. Blaspheming the Lord, the Supreme Lord, or his devotee is not at all good for the conditioned soul. But Krishna, being very kind, punishes the conditioned soul in one life for such sinful activities, and then takes him back home, back to Godhead. The vivid example for this is Vritrasura, who was formerly Chitraketu Maharaj, a great devotee. Because he derided Lord Shiva, the foremost of all devotees, he had to accept the body of a demon called Vritra. But then he was taken back to Godhead. Thus, when Krishna punishes a demon or conditioned soul, he stops the conditioned soul's habit of blaspheming him, and when the soul becomes completely pure, the Lord takes him back to Godhead. Okay. I look up and everybody's gone. Oh, thank you. Okay, so this is the second part of Narada Muni's response. The first part was lack of discrimination between Atma and self results in being affected by criticism. He's addressing Yudhishthira Maharaj's assumption that criticizing the Lord is a bad thing and it prevents you from getting liberation. So then he says that the Lord, he doesn't misidentify himself with the body, therefore he's not affected by criticism. So this is the second part. And, so one could say, well, if the Lord isn't affected by criticism, then what's wrong with criticizing the Lord? Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur raises this question. What's wrong with criticizing the Lord if he doesn't get affected by it? Right, yeah, see, he studied the chapter. He knows. He knows. Oh, okay. Well, then maybe you shouldn't. Yeah. You shouldn't criticize Krishna because you're going to get some. It doesn't affect Krishna any bit that you criticize him. But if you criticize him and you're not like completely absorbed in him, then you get karmic reactions for that. It's bad for you because Krishna. There's a verse that says, if anybody hears blasphemy of devotees or of the Lord or his devotees, then he'll be. Is this what you talked about in your class? Yeah. So then he'll be cast down into hell. Either you have to, if you hear blasphemy from a devotee, a blasphemy of a devotee or the Lord, then you either have to like kind of like argue against it, or kind of like challenge them, or you have to leave. And if you don't, down to hell for hearing such things. So now we're on the, because Vishwanath Chakravarti also describes that, I don't know, maybe you talked about this too, I didn't hear your class, but well, because Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he also talks about the different kinds of criticisms. You talked about this? Favorable and unfavorable one. Yes. Okay, so this is, you already heard this class from Justin. Oh, really? Well, because we're just talking about criticism, how the Lord is not affected by criticism. There's favorable criticism, which is like the gopis, like what Justin was saying. They'll talk about Krishna as being like a very immoral person. They'll say, oh, he shot Vali, the king of the monkeys, behind a tree like a hunter. How immoral he is. Or they'll say, oh, he disfigured Supakarna, who's like this, I don't know, girl or whatever who was lusty after Ram, and then he cut off her nose and ears or something. Ugh, how terrible of a person. Or they'll comment about how he bound up Bali Maharaj, but Bali Maharaj was like a totally pure devotee, and he gave Krishna everything, but Krishna still bound him up. How terrible Krishna is. But all these, first of all, there are all good reasons why he did all these things, but the idea is that the gopis, they had this feeling that, it was kind of like it was a favorable kind of criticism that, it was just from their love that they were saying these things. It wasn't from any enmity or anything. So that's a favorable kind of criticism. And then there's the unfavorable kind of criticism, which has two kinds. One unfavorable kind of criticism comes from complete absorption in the Lord. And this example is like Shishupal, which is being described here. Like Shishupal, since he was from a baby, from the first few words that he could possibly speak as a baby, criticism of Krishna was coming out. So he was so absorbed in Krishna that, it's described that he was thinking kind of like if, this might more apply to Kamsa, but it might also apply to Shishupal, is that just like somebody who's being attacked by a tiger, whoever's being attacked by the tiger, his full, complete absorption is on that tiger. And it's not that you're like thinking so much like it's almost like you're not even thinking so many bad things about the tiger. You kind of respect the tiger for about ready to kill you, but you're so absorbed in that tiger and nothing else. So it's kind of like that kind of absorption where you just constantly think about Krishna and nothing else. And this kind of unfavorable criticism of the Lord, that's good. If you can get to that point, it's described as continuous enmity, or some continuous enmity of the Lord. If you can get to that point where you're constantly absorbed in thinking about Krishna and like criticizing him and only him, then you can get liberation. Then you can, achieve the body of the Lord. Or the thing is, when you're thinking like that, you start to think that there's no difference between the Lord and you. And therefore, whenever you do get killed and you're thinking so much about Krishna, that so much so that you don't even think there's a difference between you and Krishna, then your result is that either you merge into his body or you get a body like his. So that's how far you can go with that absorption in unfavorable criticism. But then there's the unfavorable criticism where there is no absorption, and this is like the King Vena. King Vena was just criticizing the Lord, but he wasn't so absorbed in that. He's just like a totally sinful person. But the Lord wasn't like the prominent thing in his mind. So when he got killed, he went to hell. So that's ultimately the answer that we'll kind of explore more in future days. But Paramatma himself, he doesn't, because he doesn't identify with, or he doesn't misidentify himself. Paramatma also has two identities. Paramatma, like the living entity, they have this problem because they have two bodies, and then they misidentify with one body, and then they don't identify with the correct body. And the Paramatma also has two identities that the Paramatma identifies with. Ooh, it's pretty crazy, huh? So one identity that the Paramatma has is as being completely composed of Krishna. The Paramatma identifies himself, even though Paramatma is in everybody's body, in the heart of every body. He doesn't although he's in the heart of every body, he doesn't identify as any of those bodies, even though he's residing there. But he does identify himself as one being completely composed of Krishna. That's one identity, which is correct, which is like the actual identity of the Paramatma. And two, he identifies himself as being a portion of Krishna, which is also correct. And it's called Antaryami or something, a portion of Krishna. So Paramatma, the expansion of Krishna, he doesn't misidentify himself, but he identifies himself either as Krishna completely or as a portion of Krishna. And because he only identifies himself, Paramatma comes from the form of Krishna, or comes from Krishna. That's it. So therefore, because he's identifying himself properly, he doesn't get affected by criticisms or praises or anything. So I thought that was a cool point. And then the third part of Narada Muni's response is also in this verse, is that he says the reason why. He's also challenging that assumption that criticizing the Lord is a bad thing. But he also says that the Lord, when he chastises a demon or a devotee or anybody, it's ultimately for their good. He's equal to everybody. He's a friend to all living beings. So when he chastises or when he glorifies or whatever people, it's always all for their own good. So because the Lord is acting in one way to one person, another way to another person, that's still good. So these are the first three parts of Narada Muni's response, and then the fourth part goes more into this absorption point. Like, why is it, kind of like what I just described, but in more details. He describes the different kind of absorptions and what they lead to, and why Shishupal got one destination and Vena got another one. So I'll stop here. Any questions? Comments? It was, you won't find it in any scripture. It's an oral story that if you go to Yavata in Vrindavan, this is the oral tradition that's passed down from forever. Like this has always been the oral tradition that they believe in Yavata, or that they say. So it's an oral tradition. So Shivaram Maharaj, I found it in Navavraja Mahima, but Shivaram Maharaj, I think he went to the place in Yavata, and he heard from the local pundits or devotees there, and they told him this story about Kamsa.
It was amazing. It was like, especially the way you told it.
Yeah.
First realizing
Yeah. It was really interesting to read. So, and in the future, in the next coming verses, we're going to hear about one of the absorptions. There's 5 kinds of absorptions that you can have, which will get you to liberation or realization of who you are. And one of them, and an example of one of them is Kamsa. So it's coming up. Kamsa is going to so absorbed in fear of Krishna that he ends up getting a body like Krishna when he dies. So his example is coming up. So I thought this is a good story to tell in relation to this section of the Bhagavatam. Okay. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. It's cool. You can read it if you like. I can, more juicy details.
Yeah. It's interesting though. It's like, wow, how could he ever give up the gopi body? How could he saw Srimati Radharani right in front of his face, it's like, how could he not?
I know, isn't that so crazy?
It's sad. He went back to being a Kamsa and being in fear all the time.
Yeah. Anyway, one of my thoughts was when I was reading, I was like, well, Kamsa really has this desire to go back to the body of Kamsa.
Yeah.
Why doesn't he just drink from the water again and poop? He didn't think about that, obviously. He didn't really know what was going on.
Yeah.
I think Kamsa didn't want to be anybody's servant. That's what he accepted.
That might have been part of it, but because it was just like one of the points made in that section was that it's just merely an external show. Like even though
his subtle body isn't.
His subtle body didn't change, and he just had like an appearance of a body of a gopi, but it's just a form without any substance.
So he still had material coverings covering Srimati Radharani, so he couldn't see them in their full beauty. He still had like a perverted perception.
It's described as being a shadow of transcendental reality.
It's such like a, I don't know, just a trippy story. Really like.
Yeah, there's all kinds of trippy stories in the original.
Yeah, I like it. It is like Franz Kafka meets Krishna Lila.
Yeah, you can make like, videos. Because you can picture the whole scene in your mind. I was just picturing.
For some reason, when you said Ganondorf, I was like, I could picture it better. It like.
Oh, sure. Well, criticism. Favorite of criticism is like the kind of, sometimes I hear the gopis criticize Krishna. Maybe give you.
Yeah.
Saying all kinds of bad things.
But they don't need that.
No, but not all of them saying. So that's the criticism, and that's the best. You can get that kind of. You can criticize Krishna like that.
Yeah, don't try it though. It's not like a part of the sadhana, Because I found in the Garga Samhita, there's all the pastimes of all the demons. And you really like it because I know you like pastime. And it's really interesting because all the demons in Krishna Lila were like given blessings by devotees to appear as a demon and have that mentality. It's not like they cultured it like a bhakta does, thinking in a certain mood. Because otherwise you fall down before you ever got that.
First of all, it's so risky because in order to be able to perfect that, you have to continue ascending.
Yeah.
But if you don't have that, the risk is you're going to have.
And it's not bhakti either because bhakti is favorable. Like that's the definition of bhakti. Did you do that past